File these Disney things under the why, how, and who was this even for columns. Oh yeah, and for some reason we're also talking about Ace Ventura and Barbie, so buckle up. Hey everybody, it's AJ for Disney Food Blog. Disney World has done a lot in the 50 years it's been open. Some OG rides are still on our list of must-dos every single trip. Many of us fondly remember and miss shows and lands that are long gone. But there were a few things in Disney World that had to die, whether it's to make way for something new, or because Disney lost a sponsorship, or someone finally woke up from the fever dream that created that thing in the first place. We're going to start today with bizarre meet and greets. So character meet and greets in the 90s at Disney World were something else. Mickey Mouse, Cinderella, Ace Ventura, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, some of these things are not like the others. Let's head back to a time when Disney didn't rely only on Disney IP to populate their parks, a time before Disney owned Lucasfilm, Marvel Studios, and Muppet Studios, when Disney would license characters in order to feature them in the parks. In 1995, Ace Ventura Pet Detective Live graced the streets of America in Disney MGM Studios, now Galaxy's Edge in Hollywood Studios. This small stunt show was mostly to promote Ace Ventura When Nature Calls, which, is not a Disney movie. They actually paid to have a character actor imitate Jim Carrey to promote a movie that wouldn't make them any money. Why? Well, in the 90s, Disney was all about bringing in stuff that would appeal to teens and a slightly more adult crowd. Remember, MGM Studios opened as a direct competitor to Universal Studios Orlando, which has always had more of an older kid teen audience, certainly more so than Disney with their princesses and castles. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles also performed mini shows and signed autographs in MGM Studios from 1990 to around 1995, even though they were never owned by Disney. Barbie even appeared in EPCOT from 1994 to 1995 to celebrate Barbie's 35th birthday with a stage show and activities around World Showcase. Disney doesn't really bother licensing out characters and IP anymore, possibly because they flat out own so much right now, but all those contracts had to be a bit of a hassle. Most of these were really small, low production budget, one-off shows, which isn't something Disney does too often anymore. New characters and shows now tend to be longer lasting or have a reuse factor, which is probably a lot more sustainable in the long run. And it certainly makes you think about some of the arguments around how current Disney IP fits into the parks when Barbie clearly had no place in EPCOT in 1994, and it still happened. Now, next on our list of things that had to die in Disney World, those dinosaurs in Animal Kingdom. Well, Dinoland seems to be getting the short end of the stick lately with Primeval World closing for good. It's kind of the forgotten land of Disney World, but this isn't the first time the land has taken a hit. Dinosaurs used to actually roam Animal Kingdom. A character named Professor Parker Woodson would lead a brightly colored raptor around Animal Kingdom back in 2014, which was super impressive until it became kind of really clear how the magic worked. But this wasn't the first dino in the park. Back in 2003, the park had the first free-roaming animatronic, Lucky the dinosaur. This animatronic had the ability to walk, move his head and tail, blink, have conversations with guests, and sign autographs. Lucky the dinosaur appeared in Disney California Adventure before moving to Animal Kingdom and Hong Kong Disneyland, and Lucky would frequently break down since he was only a prototype. Disney moved him back to have a permanent home at Walt Disney Imagineering in California, where he'll still make appearances from time to time. We got better tech now, so maybe we could see dinos in the park once again. And of course, we got that baby Groot that they've been working on for a very long time. Disney's obviously working on those free roaming animatronics, and we've seen the droid SK rolling around the Star Cruiser, and hopefully baby Groot will make an appearance now that Guardians of the Galaxy have hit EPCOT. We'll see. Okay, the Sorcerer's hat from MGM Studios. From 2001 to 2014, the Sorcerer's hat was the icon of MGM Studios after replacing the Eiffel Tower, which was the park's previous icon. You could not miss this thing. It was huge and was a dominating presence in any photo you took on Hollywood Boulevard. It is the definition of Walt's weenie. That sounds bad. It's the definition of Walt Disney's definition of a weenie. Maybe that's better? I don't know. You be the judge. So why did it have to die? Well, in 2008, MGM Studios became Hollywood Studios, and the whole identity of the park began to change. The Sorcerer's hat was a mainstay of the old park, but not a part of its future. Oddly, though, the Chinese Theater, which had been blocked by the big blue park icon / gift shop, did not become the new park icon. That honor sort of de facto went to Tower of Terror. And since the Sorcerer's hat didn't really have a lot of fans, when it came down in 2015, there didn't seem to be a lot of tears. So are you team Sorcerer's hat? Let us know in the comments. Okay, this one was truly bizarre. Remember when you could rent a cabana in Tomorrowland? Wouldn't it be incredible to have a shaded, relaxing spot to lay down, have a snack, and get away from it all without having to trek all the way back to your hotel room? Even better if it's right inside the park, like right by Space Mountain. Okay, now fork over $700. In 2016, Disney tested out cabanas, which in theory sound great, but let me paint a picture of what they were like. Picture one of those vinyl-sided pop-up carports. Then stick that in the parking lot just behind Space Mountain and fill it with some white pleather sofas and a bureau. Kinda weird. They could accommodate up to 8 guests and you'd get snacks, a fruit basket, drinks, sunscreen, a locking storage trunk, a fridge, personalized Mickey ears, and reserved viewing for parades and fireworks. Now that's a bit sweeter of a deal. You could also get ice cream delivered once and order extra food to be delivered for a price. This was marketed, but I suspect this might be the first time most of you are hearing about it, and it just never really garnered much interest. Maybe the price was too high, maybe there just wasn't anyone looking to spend their Magic Kingdom day hanging out in a plastic cabana, but Disney didn't see any reason to continue offering these, and they quietly disappeared. Now here's another VIP style perk that just never quite made it past the beta testing. The express bus service ran around the same time as those cabanas. It ended in 2017, and it would whisk guests between the parks through backstage areas, so you could get picked up just behind Rock and Roller Coaster and get dropped off right behind the entrance to Kilimanjaro Safaris. No dealing with security between parks, no tap styles, and very likely no one else on the bus with you because no one was buying it. This wasn't something with a massive price tag either, or maybe we're just desensitized to those upgrades now. For a single day, you'd pay $15 per person to use the express bus, and if you were on a longer trip, it was just $24 per person for up to 7 days of use. Around the same time, Disney launched their partnership with Lyft minivans, which offered private, quick transportation, complete with car seats, and the whole thing just made a lot more sense. On-demand vans versus full-size Disney buses running on a constant schedule all day long with nobody in them? Yeah, minivans were a little more practical. Now it's time to talk about Pleasure Island. We are headed to Disney Springs, or rather Downtown Disney, or Disney Village Marketplace, or Walt Disney World Village, or Lake Buena Vista Shopping Center. Disney World's shopping district has had a lot of names over the years. Pleasure Island opened up back in 1989, the same year Hollywood Studios opened, in an effort to keep people at Disney World. It was modeled after and competing with nightclubs in downtown Orlando. Pleasure Island was largely entertainment for adults. In the same way that Hollywood Studios was aimed at teens, this area was aimed at their parents, or at the youths of Orlando, those 20-somethings. With multiple clubs in one location, plus dining and shopping, this was Disney's first attempt to make this area of Disney World a destination in and of itself. You could visit 8 tracks, a 70s and 80s themed dance club, Mannequins Dance Palace, a techno club, Comedy Warehouse that hosted improv shows, and the Adventurers Club, that 1930s interactive bar experience that only Disney could make, and frankly only Joe Rohde could make. New Year's Eve was celebrated every night at midnight with a fireworks show, but declining attendance caused Disney to start making changes in 2006. Nothing seemed to stick though, and Pleasure Island just wasn't the draw it once was. It was decided the area would be totally revamped, and Pleasure Island celebrated its last New Year's Eve in September 2008. And before Disney called it quits on the Pleasure Island era of Downtown Disney, they opened something for the kids. Disney Quest opened in 1998 with virtual attractions and video games galore. You guys remember when you used to go down and play that Pirates of the Caribbean game where you'd go in and it was like VR and you had to shoot all the pirates? Yeah, I remember that. The indoor interactive theme park was intended to become a chain with locations in Philadelphia, Baltimore, and Toronto, although it only ever expanded outside of Disney World to Chicago. The Chicago location closed in 2001 due to low visitor numbers, and the Disney World location held on for a little bit longer, despite the fact that attendance was also failing there, and many of the experiences were becoming outdated. Disney Quest officially closed in 2017 and was replaced with NBA Experience, which is also now dead. Maybe that's a cursed location over there. Okay, next on our list is the Kilimanjaro Safari's Poacher scene, speaking of dying. Disney World is known for attention to detail, especially in Animal Kingdom. Did you know the village of Harambe is designed based on real-life African villages, and tons of the ground research and reference material was done in Africa by Joe Rohde's team? And some of the items in the queue for Expedition Everest actually come from real Everest base camps. Yeah, Disney doesn't skimp on detail, but there's one time that maybe they should have. Back when Kilimanjaro Safaris first opened in 1998 with Animal Kingdom, it had a storyline that was a little too realistic. And raise your hand if you remember this. There's still an underlying Poacher storyline in the ride, which helps to teach us about the importance of animal protection and conservation, but the initial ride really drove that point home. In the queue, you are introduced to Big Red and Little Red, an elephant and her calf, who you get to meet in the ride, but not in the way anyone would want to. You would pass by Big Red, who had been killed by poachers in a pretty graphic and realistic scene that not a lot of young kids would understand. Then you were held up at gunpoint, literal gunpoint, by poachers before finally finding Little Red, an animatronic. Obviously, this storyline is terrifying and kind of traumatizing for, well, everyone, so it's no wonder this one had to die. Sorry, Big Red. Luckily, it didn't even make it to the official grand opening of the park, so no one besides those who got to preview the park were subjected to it. Did you know that EPCOT once had a circus? All right, if you're ready for some real elephants that also do not belong in a theme park. Now, yeah, there are real elephants in Animal Kingdom, and they live in their well-constructed habitat with a team of caretakers, but that's expected. You know where elephants are not expected? In front of Spaceship Earth. In 1987, EPCOT hosted the Daredevil Circus Spectacular. 30-minute long shows would take place several times a day in Future World with acrobats, tightrope walkers, motorcycle stunts, trapeze artists, and elephants. How'd they get the elephants in? Where'd they keep them? People would get mad about the Illuminations globe holding up traffic when it came out. Could you imagine being told you can't cross and then a big old elephant walks past? I probably don't need to explain how a full circus popping up daily in EPCOT isn't sustainable, but it 100% is not. The show lasted only about 5 months, which is about 4 months and 3.5 weeks longer than we would have expected. Okay, next one. Smoking in the parks. As of May 2019, smoking and vaping inside the Disney parks was banned. All those designated smoking areas inside the parks are gone, and smokers will need to trek outside the gates for a smoke break. If you'll remember, smoking areas inside the parks weren't always easily tucked away. Most of the time, it was just a bench on a walkway with lots of folks walking by. The decision was made to enhance the guest experience and make it more enjoyable for everyone who visits, quote unquote. This one is pretty in line with moves across the country to keep smoking out of public places. It's definitely something you want to keep in mind and plan for, though, if you are a smoker or are traveling with one. It'll eat up some time heading in and out of the park multiple times a day, but breaking this rule is a quick way to get kicked out of the park. Next on our list is that poor pumpkin pretzel. It really did have to die. Disney World occasionally releases some questionable snack choices, and of course, we pat them on the back for effort. You gotta throw some stuff against the wall. Some of it's just not gonna stick. Let's recall that failed jack-o'-lantern pumpkin pretzel in Animal Kingdom back in 2019. The PR photo, adorable. The actual snack, kind of nightmarish. It was tasty for sure, but they could not get that icing right. It came out looking sad and melty, I think because obviously they had to warm up the pretzel, and then when you put the icing on it, it just melts, and it was just not a good process. Now, with all the competition from other Instagrammable snacks, this one bit the dust pretty quickly. If a snack isn't pretty or widely appealing, it's not going to stick around for long. We've seen plenty of food disappear from Disney World menus, and we're secretly hoping blue food dye joins that list soon, because so much blue food dye in Disney right now. And if you want to see some more food monstrosities, we've got videos on that for you, so you can indulge in the horror that is terrible Disney snacks. Ooh, here's a new one. From snacks that have left to restaurants that are gone, Traveler's Cafe is the newest restaurant to join the ranks of departed restaurants. We've got a video on a bunch of those as well if you're interested in hearing about the history of McDonald's in the parks, which I find to be fascinating. So this micro Starbucks sat just on the border of World Showcase and EPCOT, and while it wasn't there for long, it only opened in 2019. It allowed us to get our Frappuccino fix in the park. This didn't close for lack of interest or declining sales, though. This location was always meant to be temporary, and now the permanent Starbucks has arrived. Connections Cafe and Eatery is EPCOT's newest restaurant and home to a much larger and indoor Starbucks. Oh, this one's super interesting too. I'm loving recording this video. There's so much cool stuff in here. Okay, so over the years, Disney has started on projects that never quite came to be. Believe it or not, there are a lot of failed projects or projects that had the green light and then were red lighted after that. One of those was an expansion to double the size of Pop Century Resort. And the original plans for the hotel, by the way, raise your hand in the comments if you remember this one too. A phase 2 involved building basically a mirror image resort across the lake to be called Legendary years. While Pop Century, as we know it, covers the 1950s to the 90s, this part of the hotel would have buildings themed around the 1910s to the 1940s. Construction had already begun when Disney World faced a major decline in visitor numbers following 9/11, and construction projects were scaled back as the existing building sat completely empty until 2010, when construction resumed. Now, obviously, there are no legendary years at Pop Century right now. When you think about it, it's kind of like, well, how would would you really theme around like the Prohibition, I guess? And maybe like the preferred rooms would be the ones like themed to the Depression or something. I don't know. Anyway, it didn't fly. So what did they build instead? Art of Animation, of course. The original buildings became the standard size Little Mermaid rooms, while the rest of Art of Animation features those family suites. Pretty big upgrade. But isn't it weird to look at those just empty, half-built hotel buildings in Disney World? Kind of reminds me a little bit of the state of EPCOT right now when you're riding on the monorail and it's just like a bunch of construction taking up the majority of this giant theme park. And you're just like, how is this financially viable? I guess it is. Okay, next on our list happens to be an EPCOT, so there we go. It's EPCOT's Food and Wine Festival Premium Package. So EPCOT's Food and Wine Festival has offered lots of VIP options over the years, exclusive cooking demos, party for the senses, but one VIP experience that didn't stick around long is the Premium Package that was offered only back in 2014 and 15. This package came with a few perks. First, you'd get an in-room gift, a tote filled with a bottle of wine, wine glass, chocolate truffles, specialty magic band, a $50 gift card, and a credential lanyard. And that lanyard would get you access to 10 dining locations around World Showcase, set up with tables and umbrellas where you could order food from about 4 booths and have it brought to you. That's right. No waiting in lines for the food booths, no hunting down tables and navigating crowds with your food and drinks. This was Food and Wine Table Service Edition. You'd also get access to Late Nights Live, a private event just for premium package guests to explore the food booths and see live music and entertainment after EPCOT closed. You got food and drink tokens for this as well. The price for this, $199 per person, which honestly is a steal when you consider that last year's Magic Kingdom Christmas party started at $169 per person. But why didn't it last? Well, $199 might be a bargain compared to other currently high-priced Disney extras, but a lot of people didn't go for those high-priced extras, and $199 certainly isn't cheap back then. These offerings also required hiring a lot of folks just for these new positions. EPCOT's festivals used to rely on temporary seasonal employees, less so now that they're nearly all year long, and this meant bringing in food runners to attend to those dining locations that, to be honest, weren't occupied very often. All right, next on our list is another EPCOT Food and Wine Festival death, the Cranberry Bog. This was so much fun. EPCOT typically has a few sponsors for their festivals that end up featuring certain items on menus, and for a while, one of those big sponsors was Ocean Spray, which meant craisins were everywhere for a couple of years. But the sponsorship didn't stop at craisins being added to festival dishes. Ocean Spray brought a whole cranberry bog to EPCOT. The bog sat right in front of the Fountain of Nations, and you could watch farmers wade around and they'd teach you how cranberries were harvested. Back in 2012, I actually got to attend a special event and get into the bog myself. Now that is a core memory. Sadly, that sponsorship ended and we no longer have the cranberry bog during EPCOT's Food and Wine Festival. I still miss it every single year. Next on our list of things that had to die in Disney World, extra ticketed events at extra ticketed events. Now, is this one completely dead? Maybe not. I can see them doing this again, but for now we're going to throw it in here. So Halloween and Christmas parties in Magic Kingdom have been a little different the past few years. Though things are looking a whole lot more like they used to, there's one short-lived part of those parties that has not returned. In 2019, Disney introduced a new upgrade option for Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween Party and Very Merry Christmas Party, Cruella's Halloween Hideaway, and Tony's Most Merriest Town Square Party. Now, the Magic Kingdom Christmas parties are already an extra ticket on top of your regular old park tickets since they're single night special events and they're expensive. 2021 started at $169 per person. Now back in 2019 it was $79 to $135 per person. Still pricey. And then you could add on another extra ticketed event to your extra ticketed event. For $99 more, you would get access to Tony's Town Square restaurant for 3 hours during the event where you could nosh on some appetizers and grab a glass of wine or beer. Once parade time arrived, you'd get a special viewing location to watch from, and the food was fine. The parade viewing was a definite perk if you wanted to catch the busier, earlier parade. But if you spent your time in Tony's Town Square, you were missing the rest of the event you already paid for, right? Now, yeah, you got to meet Tony or Cruella, depending on what time of year you were going, but is that worth an extra $100? So with the rising cost of those Magic Kingdom parties and the fact that they now include ice cream, popcorn, and sodas, it seems very likely that this add-on will not be returning. But hey, when it comes to extra costs on top of extra costs, you can never keep Disney down. Okay, this one's really sad, but I'm going to talk about it anyway. From EPCOT's opening day until January 30th, 1994, the hub of the front of the park was Communicore. This double pavilion introduced many folks to the age of computers through brand new technology like touchscreen games. You could speak with robots and get info about EPCOT through top-of-the-line new computer systems. And of course, there was a restaurant and gift shop too. Needless to say, that exciting new technology got dated, and in 1994, the pavilion became Innoventions, where you could still experience some cool technology, plus try some free soda and hug Mickey. But even that replacement pavilion has reached the end of its life. Innoventions East has now become Connections Cafe and Eatery and the Creations Shop, and Innoventions West is gone, soon to become the home for Journey of Water, that Moana attraction that's still under construction. Okay, next on our list, we're going to talk about one that's not dead yet, but we're pretty sure it's going to die, and that's the ESPN Club. It's not dead yet. This one is a bit of an honorable mention, though you won't have one last chance to visit the restaurant and bar, famous for having TVs in each bathroom stall. In March 2022, Disney announced major changes coming to the Boardwalk Inn and Disney's Boardwalk, room renovations and new restaurants. The Boardwalk Bakery is being transformed into a sandwich shop, and the Cake Bake Shop by Gwendolyn Rogers will be opening in 2023. This is more than a bakery. This is a full table service restaurant that will have both savory and sweet items as well as afternoon tea. And with little available real estate on the boardwalk, most places have reopened. There's only one spot that remains temporarily closed and is large enough to fit the new Cake Bake Shop. That's the ESPN Club. We're still awaiting the official announcement, but it seems the time has come for this sports bar. Now, Disney World is always changing. It's at the very core of Walt's vision for his theme parks. Sometimes those changes are part of a natural progression of the world and its reflection in the parks, and sometimes it's because occasionally Disney had some bad ideas. Thanks for listening, everyone, and thanks for watching. As always, this is AJ for Disney Food Blog, and we'll see you real soon.